You want to watch on Tuesday the primaries for Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. This is fascinating. And this is going to be one of the bellwether districts. It's going to be the most followed race in Congress and probably end up being the most expensive. Nebraska 2 is occupied by Republican Don Bacon. He's quitting. He's had enough. He's a retired Air Force Brigadier General whose wife ended up sleeping with a gun beneath her pillow after her husband announced he wouldn't support Jim Jordan's run for Speaker back in 2023. The death threats. That's how MAGA Republicans roll. Jim Jordan's people were threatening the lives of House Republicans if they didn't vote for Jim Jordan. Don Bacon has been a vocal critic of his party's pro-Putin wing. And by today's standards, he's one of the last of the moderate Republicans still in the House of Representatives, but he's had enough. The reason to watch Tuesday's primaries is to see who they're going to nominate to succeed Bacon in what is called the blue dot, Nebraska's blue dot. Nebraska, as you recall, in the Electoral College, is the only state other than Maine that is not winner take all. It has a blue dot in and around Omaha, and that's Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. So that district that Republican Don Bacon represents is the same exact district known as the blue dot that went for Kamala Harris in 2024 by 4 percentage points. It went for Biden in 2020. You might remember in the lead up to the 2024 election, Donald Trump was pressuring the Nebraska state legislature to switch to a winner-take-all state to eliminate that blue dot. That's what Trump has done to this Republican Party. Eliminate all norms, scratch and claw your way to victory. And he spent millions lobbying Nebraska lawmakers, become a winner-take-all state. And then Maine was threatening, if they become a winner-take-all state, then we'll become a winner-take-all state and eliminate the red dot in Maine. And so we should watch the blue dot, Nebraska 2. They're picking their nominees on Tuesday. Trump won it by 2 points over Hillary Clinton in 2016. Romney won it by 4 points over Obama in 2012, but Obama won it by 2 points over McCain in 2008. For the time being, it's considered reliably blue because Biden and Harris won it consecutively. At the same time, it sends a moderate Republican to the House of Representatives. By the way, electoral college votes are linked to congressional districts. This is going to be one of the most watched House races going into November because, as I said, Don Bacon is not running again. So neither candidate, Democrat or Republican, will have the power of incumbency. And some say if it's the wave election that some are predicting, we could see this House seat flip blue. There's no race for the Republican nomination right now. It's going to go to Brinker Harding. He's going to get the nomination from the Republicans. He sits on the Omaha City Council. He's MAGA, running unopposed for the Republican nomination for this seat. He's gotten a full-throated endorsement from Donald Trump. He will not be, if he wins, he would not be the moderate Republican that incumbent Don Bacon is, and Don Bacon is leaving. Nebraska State Senator John Cavanaugh. Now, I have an interesting question for the comments section and the chat room. Nebraska State Senator John Cavanaugh is the clear favorite to win the Democratic nomination for Nebraska 2 on Tuesday. He's considered a progressive, but he does not support Medicare for all, and he's against abolishing ICE. So to me, if you're not for Medicare for all and you don't think we should abolish ICE, you're worthless. He supports a public option for Obamacare, which is better than what we have, but I would support a public option. It's incrementalism. Public option means the federal government would sell its own health insurance and compete with United Healthcare. It's not the same as Medicare for all, and Barack Obama wanted a public option put into Obamacare, but they lobbied him out of it. They said this is an attack on the health insurance companies. So he stripped it out of Obamacare before it could even be voted on. They didn't even have a chance to vote on the public option. Biden was saying he wanted to reintroduce the public option. But single payer is the way to go. We all know that. Okay, I have a question for the comments section of the chat room. This is something we wrestle with when we complain about moderate Democrats. Right now, I think we can all agree we're fighting fascism. We're also fighting for control of the House of Representatives and the Senate in order to defeat fascism. Let me ask my listeners, leave a comment. Do you think someone running to abolish ICE and running on a platform for single payer, the issues I care deeply about, do you honestly believe that candidate could win Nebraska 2 right now? That is the big question. Nebraska 2 elected a Republican moderate, Don Bacon. I think he's been there since 2016, but they've also voted blue in presidential elections. So is it fair to say that Nebraska 2 is purple? Are they more likely right now to elect a Democratic moderate or someone who will fight for what I think is right? Do you think if there were a candidate in Nebraska 2 running on abolishing ICE, single payer, do you think he could win Nebraska 2? I'd be curious what you think. And are you willing to lose the House of Representatives by running left of center candidates in Nebraska? Or do you think maybe you won't lose? Maybe that's how you win. It's the age-old question. How do you win elections? Now, I believe you move the Democratic Party into the Bernie camp, all the way to the left. But then I look at Nebraska 2, and I'm not so sure. I wish I could say the way you win Nebraska 2 is you run AOC. This is our old friend Dan Osborne. We remember him. We were hoping he was going to win in 2024. He ran as an independent for Nebraska Senate back in 2024 against Republican incumbent Deb Fischer. And he was polling incredibly well. At times, he was polling ahead of Deb Fischer. He ended up losing to Deb Fischer in 2024 by 7 percentage points. So not great. I think we're talking about 60,000 votes. It's Nebraska, but 7 percentage points isn't close. He's an interesting candidate. He's running again for Senate from Nebraska, this time against incumbent Republican Pete Ricketts. Apparently you cure rickets with Dan Osborne and not vitamin C. Who knew? Ricketts. I choose Ricketts. Osborne is interesting because 2 years ago, he never ran for the Democratic nomination for Senate in 2024. He wasn't the Democratic nominee for Senate in 2024. He ran as an independent. However, he coordinated quietly with the Nebraska Democratic Party to leave the primary ballot empty. So 2 years ago, when Nebraska went to the polls to pick a nominee to run against Deb Fischer, they had nobody to choose. Dan Osborne was quietly working with the Democratic Party, and the same thing is kind of happening this year. Once again, the Democratic Party in Nebraska has not recruited a candidate to run against Pete Ricketts, and they will instead support Dan Osborne's run as an independent. That's in Nebraska. Chuck Schumer, the national campaign, we don't know what he's going to do because Osborne tells voters there's no guarantee I'm going to caucus with the Democratic Party. On Tuesday, there are going to be, unlike 2 years ago, there will be names on the Democratic ballot for the Senate nomination. You've got Cindy Burbank, a retired pharmacist who's running for the Senate nomination. But she said, if I'm losing in the polls to Dan Osborne, I'll drop out. The other Democrat running is a 79-year-old pastor named William Forbes, who many suspect is a plant. He's a Republican trying to mess up the Democratic Party. Going into November, the race for Nebraska Senate is going to be, we know who it's going to be. It's going to be incumbent Republican Pete Ricketts and independent Dan Osborne, the quiet Democrat. We think he's a Democrat. He hasn't said if he'd caucus with the Democrats if he wins. Now, Bernie Sanders is an independent. He's from Vermont. He caucuses with the Democrats. Angus King is an independent from Maine. He caucuses with the Democrats. It's safe. Is it safe to assume Dan Osborne would caucus with the Democrats? Yeah, I think so. So how good is Dan Osborne? Well, we loved him in 2024. We love him now, but he doesn't support Medicare for all. He doesn't support single payer. He says he wants to strengthen Medicare and Medicaid, and he doesn't support abolishing ICE. So these are the two issues I care most about. He's not in favor of them. Dan Osborne is a Navy veteran. He served in the Tennessee and Nebraska National Guard. And most importantly, as president of the Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco Workers, and Grain Millers International Union Local 50G, he orchestrated a strike at the Kellogg's Omaha plant. 5 years ago, it lasted 77 days, and Kellogg's caved. They saved 500 jobs and benefits. They were about to cut benefits. Kellogg's caved, and as far as we know, that plant is still open. Dan Osborne doesn't support my two issues, Medicare for all and abolishing ICE. What do you do when you're starving and you're a vegan, but they're only serving hamburger? I'm starving. I think I need to eat the hamburger.